Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. This is Airwindows Sweeten. I thought I would do a quick little follow-up on what I was doing last week, seeing as Inflamer is all about generating even harmonics. Notably, there is a capacity for generating a second harmonic. Well, that might actually be a handy thing to do sometimes, like with me designing my new versions of console and so on. Maybe some big desks and things like that have second harmonic in places, like a transformer inductor-based EQ section that tends to generate asymmetrical output when it handles the transformers, or a desk that is running a little electricity through some of the transformers, making them act a little asymmetrical. Maybe some of these things use tiny amounts of second harmonic. So how'd you do that? Meet Airwindows Sweeten. Just second harmonic. It's just that bit out of the Inflamer plugin, which itself is based on wave shaping from other plugins. This one is only that plus 50 style, fully cranked, only the second harmonic, simplest possible algorithm, even further simplified. What this does is it applies a input stage onto it. This is, as you can see, one of your little one knob guys. It's tiny. And so is the code. The code is tiny. It's very easy to drop this into somewhere. It's also very easy to drop this into your mix. There's nothing to it. This is one of those ones where if you want to be oversampling things, you could probably oversample this to 1 billion kilohertz and not bog down the computer much, because there's not much there. And what you get, if you turn it up all the way, you get a very powerful addition of that second harmonic. It's going in there good and loud, and it's producing a oppressively loud mix. So what do? You pull it back, because this is one of the shifting a bit, one of those stepped controls. And that's still loud, but it's not as loud as full crank, and so on. It keeps pulling it back until these other settings down here are basically like dry. This is all additive. The dry is not attenuated for any of this. It's never replacing it with the second harmonic. It's always just adding it. And if you are selective about how much you add, you can get a real tone out of the thing. And if you're selective of how you design the plugin, you can build it in such a way that almost everything done in it is using those mantissa-preserving factor of 2 multiplications and divisions, which I think is one of the secrets behind the original plugin that's said to be a bit of a silver bullet for digital audio. Handling digital audio right is like getting a free lunch. If you use a bet shift gain stage, you can shift the gain up and down as many times as you want losslessly. Digital's weird that way. You can degrade digital by doing a lot of seemingly minimal stuff and, say, floating point precision that you wouldn't think would do very much, except for you're constantly grinding away at the mantissa of the sound. Or you can do stuff that is sort of arbitrarily chosen in gain level, but what it's doing is it is having minimal effect on sort of the depth and resonance of the sound. That's what we got here. You crank it all the way and there's too much. Pull it back to around 0.5. That's about 12 dB down. That's still a fairly strong effect. We can turn it off and then turn it on. And that second harmonic is in there, but that's all there is. There's only the second harmonic in there. And then we can continue pulling it back for extremely subtle effects. And if your ears are good enough to hear what that's doing, you can build it into your mix and apply exactly the amount of second harmonic that you want, just the tiniest amount, and just that much, with very little negative effect to the rest of the sound. There is Airwindows Sweeten for you. I'm calling it Sweeten because that's what people normally consider even harmonics to do. It's not all the even harmonics. It's just pretty much just only second harmonic is basically how this one works. It's a neat discovery. Hats off to Paul Frindle for coming up with that one, because it's a very simple wave shape algorithm, but it behaves in a real specific way. It's kind of like me discovering that sine waves, that using a sine function gives you an interestingly fat and full distortion through the wave shaping. The change in transfer function is always the smallest change that you can have in the sound. Turns out it makes a very big fat to be oversaturated sound when you do that. This is similar in that it is the refinement of a wave shaping. It is the refinement of a sound in such a way that it's just going to be very clean. It's going to only give you that slight even harmonic at a stage of, it's 6 dB increments basically. And if you can make that work for you, this is one of the cleanest plugins you could ever possibly use. There's just about nothing to it. And that makes it a pretty classic Airwindows job right there. I hope you enjoy it, but the main reason I'm putting it out is because I'm going to be using it. When I'm coming up with those large format analog console versions of Airwindows console, the ones with the letters after them, the ones that I've been going on about for months and doing all the research, this is how this works, is I do a million years of research, and then all of a sudden I'm coming out with stuff, and you go, where did that come from? Well, if you were paying attention, you would have seen all the little steps along the way. So often that's how stuff works. And that's most definitely how this works. I hope you like Sweeten. It is obviously not a big complicated thing. There's not many features. It's one of those one-knob plugins. But the way that works means it's going to make things all the more convenient for me to do that type of work. And since it is Airwindows open source, if you are designing some kind of plugin or something and you go, oh, I'd like to add a little analog sweetness to it, let's make things a little asymmetrical, how shall I do that? You can drop that code into anywhere you like and come up with the amount of sweetening that you would want to do using this control. Look up how many shiftings of bits it's going to require, what the exact multiplier is going to be, and build it into your circuit, build it into your plugin at that multiplier, and you're off and running. Very simple way of adding exactly the right tone coloring that you want off of the thing. That's why I've made it. That's why it is what it is. But since Airwindows is open source software, so you can get and use the source code, long as you credit Airwindows with it, you can throw that functionality into any. Honestly, I'm not sure you can call the algorithm is from a guy's take on a Melda plugin, which was in turn a take on the Oxford Inflator, which was only part of that plugin. And I'm not sure if Paul Frentel would run around claiming ownership of that simple multiplication of a nonlinear function. It's almost too simple. But this application of it in keeping everything that simple and specifically choosing gain levels that maintain the mantissa of the audio word that we're working on, that's kind of Airwindowsy. So I would say just use a bunch of other stuff out of my code and then give credit, and you're off and running. It's MIT licensed, so it's very permissive. And I hope you like it. What I'd like to do with all of this stuff is leave the world a cooler place than it was when I found it. And I will continue to do my best to do just that. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.